during which the candidate was found to meet the criteria set out by the Health Assembly in Resolution WHA 6515, we shall now proceed to the interview of the proposed candidate in a public meeting. I shall first give the floor to the representative of the Office of the Legal Counsel to provide some clarifications on this stage of the process. Dr. Granziera, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Through decision EB 146/22, the Board decided that the interview will last no more than 60 minutes and will be divided between an oral presentation of no more than 20 minutes on the candidate's vision for the future priorities of the organization, with an analysis of the current problem facing it and suggestions as how those should be addressed, and a question and answer session of no more than 40 minutes. However, if there are insufficient questions to fill the allotted time, the candidate may make additional statements until the end of the period set for the interview, provided that the total time of 60 minutes is not exceeded. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Granziera. In addition to the modalities that were agreed by the Board, I would like to propose the following additional practical modalities to conduct the interview consistent with most recent practice. My proposal was informally brought to the attention of the Board members prior to the opening of the session. With respect to the oral presentation, it is proposed that the candidate may not use PowerPoint and may not distribute campaign or other materials during this presentation. The Secretariat would use a traffic light system to time the presentation by the candidate. The light would remain green for 15 minutes, then turn to amber for 5 minutes, and then turn to red at the expiration of the allotted 20 minutes, at which point I would request the candidate to terminate his presentation. With respect to the question and answer session, it is proposed that each member of the Board would be given a token bearing the name of their member state. Following the presentation by the candidate, members of the Board would be invited to indicate if they would like to ask the candidate a question by placing their token in a box circulated by the Secretariat. I would then draw by lot one token and invite the member of the Board's delegation concerned to put the question to the candidate in any of the 6 WHO official languages. The process would be repeated until the 40 minutes allotted for the question and answer session expires. Each member of the Board whose token is drawn would be allowed 1 minute to ask a question and would only be permitted to ask one question. Members of the Board would be requested not to ask questions to which the candidate has already provided an answer during his presentation or in response to a previous question. The 40 minutes period would start with a reading of the first question. Once a question has begun to be asked within the 40 minutes interval, the candidate will be allowed 3 minutes to answer the question, even if this goes beyond the 40 minutes allotted for the question and answer session. In this phase of the interview, 2 sets of traffic lights would be used. One set would time the 40 minutes duration of the question and answer session. The other set would time the 1 minute for the member of the board to ask the question and the 3 minutes for the answer to be provided by the candidate. Do any of the board members have any objections to these additional proposed modalities? I see none. It is so decided. Let us therefore proceed to the interview. I shall ask the Secretariat to accompany Dr. Tedros to the room and ask the ushers to distribute to each member of the board the token to be used in the process of selecting questions to be asked. Good morning, Dr. Tedros. I wish to thank you for coming to this interview today. I understand that the Secretariat has already informed you of the way we shall proceed this morning, and I propose that we start immediately with your oral presentation, for which you have up to 20 minutes. Dr. Tedros, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chair, Excellency, Chair of the Executive Board, Dr. Patrick Amott, Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends. 5 years ago, you, the member states, gave me the honor of my life when you placed your trust in me to lead and transform this vitally important global organization. I told you then that my priority was to listen, and that's what I have tried to do. I listened to you about your priorities and ideas and what you expect from your WHO. And I listened to those who know WHO best, our workforce, my colleagues, for their ideas about how to make this organization the best it can be. Those ideas became the basis of the transformation to make WHO an organization that can deliver a measurable difference to health in countries in 6 ways. By the way, I would like to share with you that I continue to listen to our staff every week on Thursdays to listen to their advice and innovative ideas. So the culture has continued. By the way, when I was Minister of Health and Minister of Foreign Affairs in Ethiopia, I used the same thing, listening on Thursdays to my staff, because listening is the basis. If you listen, then I think the next steps will be okay. And a new strategy from listening to staff and member states, a new strategy, the 13th General Program of Work, to move us from a focus on outputs to a focus on outcomes has been developed. New processes to make us more efficient and effective. A new operating model, moving from an organization that's fragmented towards one that's integrated, aligned, and agile. And a new approach to partnerships, moving from risk-averse to risk management. A new approach to financing to move us towards a more sustainable and predictable funding model. And a new culture built on a shared commitment to service, professionalism, integrity, collaboration, and compassion. That was the product of listening to member states and listening to my colleagues, my staff. Then, as you know, 2 years ago, COVID-19 changed everything. But the transformation built on the ideas and energy of our staff had positioned us to respond more rapidly and effectively than to any previous emergency. Let me take a moment to share a story from the beginning of the pandemic that really touched my heart and gave me energy and inspiration. On December 31st, 2019, New Year's Eve, as most of the world was having a party, our WHO colleagues were at work, scanning potential signals as they do 365 days a year. And that's when they saw the first signal about a cluster of cases of viral pneumonia of unknown cause from a website in Wuhan. They didn't say it could wait until the New Year because it was a New Year Eve, but they acted immediately, alerting me and others. The next day, January 1st, they didn't take a holiday. They continued to work to verify the signal, and the next day, January 2nd, they confirmed it, triggering the response across the entire organization. They said, we have a new disease, which is serious. They didn't have a New Year Eve, a New Year celebration, working throughout, and me too, although I took my first holiday since I joined WHO, and I remember that I was even in Dubai, but it wasn't a holiday for them and wasn't a holiday for me. That was the first holiday in 5 years for me, and that even didn't work because of the bad news. In the days, weeks, and months since then, our staff have continued to energize, humble, and inspire me with their skill, dedication, and commitment to serving and protecting the world's people. And in the days, weeks, months, and years ahead, Our staff will continue to be the eyes and ears, the arms and legs, and the beating heart of this organization. During the pandemic, health and the work of WHO have been discussed around the fire and the kitchen table, as much as around cabinet tables and boardrooms. Too often, health has been viewed as a cost. But it has never been clearer that health is an investment in the economy, society, and security. As I outlined in my speech yesterday, my vision for the next 5 years rests on 5 priorities to address the shared challenges we face. I'm sorry if I'm going to repeat what I said yesterday, but these are the same priorities based on the vision. First, a radical shift towards promoting healthy lives and well-being and preventing disease by addressing its root causes. As I said yesterday, the challenge we face is to move towards true health care, not sick care. I repeat, let's move towards true health care, not sick care. That means empowering people to take charge of their own health in the daily decisions they make. And it means working with governments to provide an enabling social, economic, and commercial environment that encourages and incentivizes people to live healthier lives. Healthier populations can cut disease burden in half, reduce the strain on health systems, increase workforce productivity, and improve lives. The best way forward is keeping our citizens and our people healthy. And there is progress to build on through the achievements we have made to eliminate trans fats, reduce tobacco use, improve nutrition and air quality, and more. Looking forward, my commitment is to strengthen strategic policy dialogue with member states using a whole-of-government approach to provide our best advice on how to make your populations healthier. I will also continue to enhance our focus on the existential challenges of the climate crisis and antimicrobial resistance. Climate change impacts our health most seriously than any other factor. Second, we must urgently reorient health systems towards primary health care at the foundation of universal health coverage. Again, there is progress to build on, including the Astana Declaration on Primary Health Care and the Political Declaration on Universal Health Coverage, which all member states endorsed at the UN General Assembly in 2019. I was very happy to have that political support from all heads of states and heads of government. However, we are now facing a shortfall of up to 840 million against our target to see 1 billion more people benefiting from universal health coverage. After decades of progress, COVID-19 led to backsliding on virtually all health indicators, and out-of-pocket health expenses are pushing millions of people back into poverty. This too is a global health emergency. We must reverse these trends, but we must also go beyond seeing health merely as a service that governments provide, but as a fundamental human right that's enshrined in the constitution of every nation on earth. I use this opportunity to ask each and every country who doesn't recognize health as a fundamental human right to do so, because health is central. And there should be a commitment by all governments to treat health as a fundamental human right in their constitution. Our new Council on the Economics of Health for All is developing recommendations around innovation-led transformation of our health systems that spur economic well-being. The new WHO Academy will provide millions of people around the world with rapid access to the highest quality learning in health. And I will expand our special program on primary health care, the glue of our $3 billion goals, to provide intensive support to all low and lower middle income countries and to be active in all countries. At its heart, primary health care has a commitment to equity. Accordingly, I will enhance our focus on the least served, most marginalized populations. This must include gender equality alongside migrants and refugees and internally displaced people, LGBTIQ+, and indigenous groups. Third, we must strengthen systems and tools for epidemic and pandemic preparedness and response at all levels. Shortly after I took office 5 years ago, we faced a dangerous Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. By the way, in the 2 years the Ebola outbreak was raging, I have been there 14 times. And 2 times, actually, I was stuck in a conflict because 17 armed groups operate in North Kivu. Very risky. Despite the difficult environment we faced, WHO and our partners applied the lessons from the West Africa Ebola outbreak and ensured a successful community-based response, integrating the delivery of new vaccines and therapeutics right to the front line. Although some people were telling us that you cannot contain it in DRC, we fought 2 years to contain it there. Then I think that's a progress that you should be proud of, because it's this board that actually has decided to strengthen the emergency program. And the Ebola outbreak in DRC is a good example and done based on your guidance. The pandemic has highlighted the challenge we face, that the world was not prepared, and that the global architecture for pandemic preparedness and response is weak and still fragmented. I have focused on not only on strengthening WHO's response capacities at all levels, but also by creating a new division of preparedness within the emergencies program before even the COVID-19 hit. Through the WHO Hub for Epidemic and Pandemic Intelligence, the WHO BioHub system, and the Universal Health and Preparedness Review, we have worked with member states to put in place new initiatives to strengthen global health security, reflecting long-standing mandates from the World Health Assembly. Our new science division with a chief scientist has played a critical role working with the emergencies program in accelerating research and development of COVID-19 health tools. The Division of Drug Access, Vaccines and Pharmaceuticals pre-qualified 10 COVID-19 vaccines last year. The Division of Data and Delivery for Impact is helping estimate COVID-19 mortality and to develop the Universal Health and Periodic Review. And we have taken several steps towards enhancing local production of high-quality vaccines and medicines to enhance health security and universal health coverage. The decision of member states at the special session of the World Health Assembly special session to move forward on a new binding accord between nations on pandemic prevention, preparedness and response is a giant historical stride forward. I will continue to urge leaders to act with ambition so that negotiations are swift and we are ready to respond to the inevitable next disease X. Fourth, we need to accelerate progress towards the SDGs through science and innovation, data and delivery, and digital tools. Whether we like it or not, the way forward is smart and connected. No generation in history has had more powerful tools to promote health and prevent disease, to deliver innovative health products and services in new ways, and to prepare for, prevent, detect, and respond rapidly to outbreaks and epidemics. But we also face a huge challenge to ensure equitable access to the fruits of science and innovation so they don't become another reason more people are left behind. This is the equity issue which I have been talking about for a long time. That's why strengthening data and health information system in all countries is essential to measure progress and identify gaps. I will continue to strengthen our work in science and innovation, including a greater focus on the impact of our now digitized and living guidance and the scaling of innovations to accelerate progress. And I will continue to expand our work on data and delivery, working with member states to strengthen data systems and increase capacity to identify and monitor progress. Fifth, we must strengthen WHO's leading role at the center of the global health architecture. Leadership in the global health architecture is core to the work of a Director General. Through the SDG 3 Global Action Plan, the Access to COVID-19 Tools Accelerator, and new partnerships across civil society, the private sports and technology, we're reaching people WHO has not reached before with life-saving messages. A strong WHO at the center of the global health architecture prevents fragmentation and improves value for money, not only for your investments in WHO, but in the entire global health ecosystem. As part of the transformation, we developed our first investment case, held our first partner forum, set up the WHO Foundation, increased core voluntary contributions, and introduced thematic funding. This shift has given us the flexibility to move money where it can have the most impact and to better implement the priorities member states set out in the program budget. The change we have seen in financing quality is a measure of the trust you put in WHO and has allowed us to strengthen our programs and increase funds going to regional and country offices. But the quality and quantity are still not up to the size of the task. WHO's future success will depend on your support for the proposals of the Working Group on Sustainable Financing to raise assessed contributions to 50% of our budget by 2028-2029, and to supplement our program budget process with a replenishment model. I ask you to support these recommendations. On my first day at WHO as Director General, I said our greatest asset was our staff. We have focused relentlessly on making WHO a better place to work. Going forward, we will continue to build an organization that attracts and retains the best talent from around the world. I am proud of the gender and geographic balance of my leadership team at headquarters, and I remain committed to improving gender balance and diversity at all levels of the organization. During the past year, I have been horrified by reports of sexual exploitation and abuse during the response to the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Maybe if you give me 1 minute, Your Excellency, I would be happy to cover just few items. I'm a bit over, but just 2 minutes. Our response has been robust, including the unprecedented step of handling a rigorous investigation over to an independent commission and a strong management response. My commitment to preventing sexual exploitation and all forms of abuse and harassment with a victim and survivor-centered approach is ironclad. Finally, working with our regional directors, I will implement the recommendation of the evaluation of WHO transformation to invest dedicated attention and resources toward this supporting country-level transformation in the next phase. In 2022, as I said yesterday, we can help end the acute phase of the pandemic if we work together to meet the WHO target that every country vaccinate 70% of its population by the middle of the year. In 2023, we celebrate our 75th birthday. Let's ensure WHO is on firm financial footing by then, and we are on the way to concluding a binding agreement on pandemic preparedness. In 2025, we want to see that the triple billion targets are back on track, which will give us hope of meeting the global goals by 2030. Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends, out of the ashes of the World War II, leaders came together and built the UN and WHO to bond nation-states together and push for peace. And what we collectively do next will not only define when the acute phase of this pandemic ends, but it will also define the future of global health security. I remain completely committed to serving you, our member states, and your people. I'm committed to continuing to promoting health and preventing disease, and the rest of all the priorities I have just set in my speech earlier. So, Your Excellency, thank you so much, and back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Tedros. We will continue with a question and answer session. I shall now ask those board members that wish to ask a question to put the relevant token bearing the name of their state into the bag that the usher will shortly bring around. Would the usher please take the bag, show everyone that it's empty, and then take around with the bag to collect the tokens. I will now draw the first token. May I invite Colombia to read the question?
Thank you and good morning, Mr. Candidate. I'm going to switch to Spanish to make my question. Dr. Tedros,
Dr. Tedros, you said during your presentation as a candidate that one of your focuses at work is in strengthening the global architecture. And I'd like to take this opportunity to learn a little bit more about your regional perspective for the Americas. We know the work plan that you proposed in 2017 and that member states supported. And we understand that the pandemic has delayed the achievement of most of the objectives. And that in this new period, the organization would focus on accelerating progress towards achieving those targets. We consider that the regional perspective has seen to be essential, particularly in strengthening the capacities of each of the regions within WHO. Sometimes you notice that the organization doesn't have direct work in the Americas and in its member states, and that the regional approach is limited in the work plan. So the question would be, what are the challenges that you identify in our region, the Americas? And do you have any plan to strengthen actions to support the region in achieving these targets in coordination with the regional office of PAHO?
Thank you, Colombia. Dr. Tedros, you have the floor for a maximum of 3 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That's a very important question. As you know, when we started our transformation, it was WHO-wide. And we had our new operating model, which is aligned actually from headquarters to regions up to countries. And as you may know, we have worked together with regional directors and our country offices to come up with that operating model, and it has vertical alignment. And through that, I think we can work together in a better way, more effective way than before. As you also know, not only the operating model, we have output teams which are aligned at all levels based on the GPW. So I think although we have a decentralized system, I believe that a decentralized and empowered system actually delivers better. So I don't see that as a problem. The most important thing is, within that decentralized and empowered system, how do we align ourselves? And one of the things we did in transformation is exactly that. So in the global health architecture, as long as we're aligned through the GPW, we're aligned through the output teams, and we have structures that are a mirror image at all levels, and as long as we're all committed to strengthening the country offices or build capacity at country level, I think it will be okay. So that's what I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tedros. The next EB member is Slovenia.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to ask Dr. Tedros about the role of the EB. The role of the EB is to support and advise on the implementation of agreed commitments from WHO and from the World Health Assemblies. We are convinced that the cooperation between the EB and the DG should be closer and not just restricted to the two official meetings as it is currently. We need better and more frequent exchange of information. What assessment do you make of the evaluation of the EB role and practices over the years? And what would you propose for future cooperation between the DG and the EB?
Thank you, Dr. Tedros. Again, you have 3 minutes to be able to respond to that intervention.
Thank you. Thank you, Slovenia. That's a very important question. As soon as I became a DG, I understood actually the advantages of working with EB closely. And as you rightly said, I even said the same thing you said, 2 board meetings a year to interact with the governance is absolutely ridiculous. It's wrong, actually. The Secretariat and the board should interact on regular basis. And the first thing I proposed was, okay, the board may meet only twice a year, but why not we make the bureau more active between the 2 board meetings? Because you have a bureau of 6 people, the chair and the vice chairs of the board, who can interact with us on regular basis, so support us. And I remember it was the Permanent Secretary of Health of Pakistan at that time, who was the board chair. He was happy with the idea. We had even a meeting in Islamabad, but the rest of the board members and member states were not really comfortable with the idea. That's what happened. I need to be honest with you. Going forward, okay, the past is the past. I still believe that the regular communication or interaction between the board and the Secretariat is important. When I say this, some colleagues say, no, if you do that, the member states will meddle and will affect the responsibilities of the Secretariat, or will meddle into the affairs of the Secretariat. But my answer is, it's not meddling. When Secretariat and the governance interact more, there is better value for the people we serve. So we need to interact more frequently with our governance to get their support so we can achieve better results. And I still believe that's the case. And I'm really glad that there are recommendations, as you know. For instance, from my good friend Clemens on the Standing Committee for Emergency Response, Preparedness and Response. And there is also a proposal from the US on Governance Committee. I full-heartedly support those committees because they can help us to work together closely, the Secretariat and governance, to achieve better results. So my question to member states is, please make that happen. Please let's have our standing committee. Please let's have our governance committee. And let's work together for a better result. So I think the ball is in your court. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tedros. The next lot is Paraguay. May I now invite Paraguay to read the question?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. I will switch to Spanish to make my question.
My delegation wishes to take this opportunity to commend Dr. Tedros for his nomination, and we've listened very carefully to his plan for his second term of office, demonstrating his determination to ensure that this health crisis, the most serious over the past century, enables a reset within WHO, which is such a necessary but also a fragile organization. We all agree that the COVID-19 pandemic has underscored and exacerbated systematic inequalities between countries. And most countries agree on the need for the organization to have sustainable financing. Could Dr. Tedros explain if equality among regions will be one of the pillars of his work plan, and if, in his view, the proposal to states for increasing contributions is adjusted to the principle of differentiated but shared responsibilities? Thank you.
Thank you, Paraguay, for that question. Dr. Tedros, again, you have 3 minutes to be able to provide a response.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a very important question. Sustainable financing is key, not only for WHO, but other global organizations too. And as soon as we started our transformation agenda, one of the 7 transformation ideas were actually sustainable financing. And we established a new structure, a new division, which is the external relations. And then under that, we have a department, resource mobilization. We moved quickly, based on the GPW, to write an investment case. And then we had partners forum. And not only that, we built WHO Foundation, and we did our best to expand the donor base because we were dependent on few donors. And then we started using whatever funding we were raising from the new approach as equitably as possible across the regions. But the problem is still whatever we have done is mainly an earmarked budget. So it's not really flexible enough to even have equitable distribution of funding in the regions. And that's why we also advocated side by side for assessed contribution that will be more flexible so we can use it based on the global priorities and also achieve equitable distribution among regions. So on assessed contribution, I mean, the advantage is exactly that. WHO used to have more than 80% assessed contribution in the 1970s, 1980s. And now, most of the contributions we have, financial contributions, is voluntary contribution. The assessed contribution is less than 20%. It's not flexible. So that's why we're having a problem in equitable distribution. But not only that, in using the funding based on the global priorities. So the differentiated, you say, or other factors that the member states can use will be up to the member states. But our push is for an increase in assessed contribution for up to 50%. As you may remember, the IPPR recommended more than 60% increase of the assessed contribution from the current levels to more than 60%. But the working group led by Biyun Kumel actually wanted a middle ground, so they proposed 50%. So I think the 50% is fine, but it will not be enough. And I asked the member states to agree on the 50% and help us, WHO, to work flexibly. By the way, it's not an increase in money. It's not the volume of money. The increase in assessed contribution also gives independence to WHO. Maybe you can call it emancipation of WHO. But that may not be enough, and we should have other models like replenishment to increase funding to cover all the financial needs we need. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Dr. Tedros. May I invite the next token, the Republic of Korea. May I invite the Republic of Korea to read the question?
Thank you. Dr. Tedros, despite so many accomplishments and progress you have made as a Director General during the last 5 years, it is unfortunate that the COVID-19 pandemic has further delayed the progress toward GPW 13 and SDGs. I think it is also fair to say WHO has lacking in effort to address one of the most important issues of our time, the health effect of climate change. Even though you have very briefly mentioned about during your presentation, I'd like to ask, what are your plans for the next 5 years to strengthen UHC, the resilience of health system and responses against climate change effect on health?
Thank you, Republic of Korea. Dr. Tedros, again, you have 3 minutes to be able to respond.
Thank you, Korea. Kamsamida. For the next 5 years, as I outlined in my priorities, under the health promotion, climate change and health will be one, and it was in my first term. And related to the resilient health systems you raised, as you may remember, during the COP26, we have tried our best to make sure that countries commit to resilient health systems, and 50 countries have already signed. Of course, 50 countries will not be enough, but we believe that it's a good start, and we will continue to work with countries to sign up to the resilient health system for climate change. That will be very important, especially in SEEDS countries, in small island and developing states. But in fighting climate change and health, I think it's more or bigger than having a resilient health systems. One of, I think, the strongest threats to health, to human health, will be climate change. It can increase the prevalence of non-communicable diseases, as you know. And it also has impact on increasing communicable diseases. So its impact on overall health is really huge, and we need to give it its right attention. And addressing the root cause, climate change or environment, will be very crucial, more than even the resilient health system that we're saying. Resilient health system is one. It's mainly to respond, but I think we have to invest in the root causes, and especially in preventing climate change and keeping, as the world agreed, the 1.5 degrees that can keep our planetary health really in the right condition. But with serious climate change problems, the health problem will be serious, and that's why we have to focus at the root. And it could be mitigation, it could be adaptation, but we need to have a comprehensive approach, and I would like to assure you that it's our priority.
Thank you, Dr. Tedros. The next lot is Denmark. May I invite Denmark to read the question?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, DG Dr. Tedros. The member states have unanimously called for strengthening the WHO, and especially strengthening of the coordinating role of the WHO in global health work. Over the years, the roles of other UN organizations and health agencies has increased. So my question to you is, what assessment do you make of the cooperation of the WHO with its partners, especially regarding the so-called vertical funds? And what changes would you suggest in the global health architecture in the coming years? And how would you work to ensure that the WHO is still continuing to play a very central role in that global health architecture? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Tedros. Again, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that's a very big question that may not be addressed in 3 minutes, but Dr. Kadui, I will try my best. I think if we see as an agency or organization that has all the mandates to coordinate global health, it's WHO. And it has a membership of all 194 member states, and we have 152 countries, presence in 152 countries. We have 6 regional offices. So I think in terms of mandate and in terms of presence, I think we have the advantage. And I hope that, the whole world will agree to use the one global health agency that has a broad mandate and presence to continue to be the convening and the coordinating organization. The reason I told you the story earlier is, especially when COVID started, to show that not only just the presence everywhere, or we're a multilateral organization, 194 member states, but there is a commitment and also a diverse knowledge that can help the world in really moving forward. And especially the last 2 years, I think this organization is more seasoned and has better experience, and in addition to its presence in the whole world, but it has more experience and can deliver better. So I think the way forward will be to identify the convening and the coordinating role of WHO. But at the same time, we recognize the support from other institutions or agencies. We actually consider ourselves as coordinators among equals, because we don't want to push others out, because many organizations who are playing in global health are actually supporting. So if you ask, based on your question actually, the response would be, we would like to be treated with that even broader mandate as an organization which is convening and coordinating, but among equals. So we extract the contribution of all agencies, and we serve the people we serve in a better way. I think every institution, every agency which is playing playing whatever extent of or magnitude of role in health can contribute, and we should bring everybody together. And I will tell you one example. The Berlin Hub, we call it global intelligence. The reason for that is the Berlin Hub should be the home of everybody, and everybody voluntarily should contribute so we know what's going on in the world, identify if there is a problem as early as possible, and attack together. So that's how we would like to work with other agencies, and we believe that WHO can contribute, but at the same time we value the contribution of all other agencies and look forward to working with them even stronger than before. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The next question will come from the Russian Federation. May I invite Russian Federation to read the question? Russia Federation.
Уважаемый господин
Thank you very much, Chairman. If you don't mind, the question will be put remotely. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. Dr. Tedros, despite the fact that we are in the course of the COVID-19 pandemic, non-communicable diseases remain a major reason for mortality and illness around the world. You and your team have already done a great deal of work to fight against and control non-communicable diseases. And you mentioned them as one of your priorities. A new approach, as I understand it, is being developed today for digitalization in health, and particularly also in the prevention and treatment of non-communicable diseases. What do you see as the new things that the organization can do in order to bring down the level of NCD mortality and illness? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tedros. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Your Excellency. That's a very important question, and I fully agree with you that NCD is now contributing the lion's share in terms of mortality. More than 70% of mortality globally is due to non-communicable diseases. And the leading cause of death globally are, number one actually is heart disease, and you have stroke, the second one, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and lower respiratory infections, neonatal conditions, trachea, bronchus, and lung cancers, Alzheimer's, it goes on. But most is already non-communicable diseases. Not only in high-income countries, it's even in low-income countries. And as you rightly said, the digitalization of health could help. I was looking at one announcement 2 days ago, actually, by the NHS, where the pharmacists of the United Kingdom were announcing to enroll people who would like to reduce their or manage their obesity. In my priorities, I said there should be a commitment to health for all, universal health coverage, but WHO primary health care should be the foundation. And that primary health care should focus on helping people to lead a healthy lifestyle. And managing obesity is one, physical activity, and alcohols in moderation, or quitting tobacco. Other non-healthy behaviors can actually be addressed using primary health care. And that's why I said we have to shift from a sick care to a health care, meaning the role of primary health care in really teaching our communities to a healthy lifestyle is very, very important. If they stay healthy, the health problems we have can be cut by 50%. That's a very big value proposition. So it's very important to promote health and prevent disease than care or manage or treat disease. And we have to prepare our primary health care for that. And then the other advantage we have is, as you said, Your Excellency, digitalization. I think the future is smart and connected. And many people are now using, a gadget that can measure many of their health conditions, starting from the steps they have taken today and the other things. And that could be fed into the center. And the primary health care system can actually give advices as early as possible on how to address if there are challenges, but at the same time advise a healthy lifestyle. And that's why we're saying the future is smart and connected, technology-based, focused on health promotion, that gives more power to individual citizens so they can produce their own health, because the health sector, including WHO, gives them information on how to live a healthy lifestyle. And that's the way, staying healthy. Then after that, of course, when health problems start, there is our universal health coverage that can take care of the problem. But the first should be, and the priority and the shift, to keep people healthy. And part of it can be done by the communities, by the individual, and part of it, like the determinants, the climate change and air pollution and others, can be done by the governments. So the health, people can stay healthy and live healthy. And that's how we can fight NCDs and even communicable diseases. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Tedros. The next lot is Kenya. May I invite Kenya to read a question?
Thank you, Chair. Dr. Tedros, congratulations on your nomination and thank you for appearing before the Executive Board to seek a second term as Director General of WHO. Building on the concept of primary health care, universal health coverage has been embraced world over as the panacea to accessing quality health care and elimination of out-of-pocket expenditure for the most vulnerable populations, particularly in developing countries. The question is, in your second term as we approach the 2030 deadline, how do you propose you and WHO can assist developing countries to entrench universal health coverage in their health systems, given the financial constraints and long-standing weak health systems? Thank you.
Dr. Tedros.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you, Your Excellency, for that important question. I think, first of all, I said it in my speech, the first step should be each and every country on earth to recognize health as a fundamental human right in its constitution. I know many countries have that, but those who don't, I think it should be important that they have it. And then the second part will be, one is the constitution, the second part will be allocating the domestic resources. Even if our countries have shortages of resources, I think putting whatever we have on the table will be very important, because mobilizing the domestic resources means there is commitment from that country. And third, we will mobilize global resources as we have done, but we will be even more aggressive to mobilize global resources to help countries who need support. I think everybody understands the centrality of health now, and solidarity will be very, very crucial. And it's only through strong health systems and universal health coverage that not only we can provide better health services, but at the same time, we can also prevent, early detect, or manage future pandemics. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tedros. The next lot is Japan. Japan, may I invite Japan to read the question?
Mr. Chair, thank you very much for giving me the floor. Dr. Tedros, you have started various important reforms which you committed yourself in your original manifesto 5 years ago. I feel that you must feel also that you are building ship while sailing, and that water is a little bit troublesome nowadays, particularly by COVID-19. You touch upon the strengthening WHO as reform agenda among one of 5 priorities in your presentation today and yesterday. In terms of governance reform, how do you assess the achievements so far you have achieved, and how would you prioritize and completing the remaining tasks and initiatives? That is my question. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Japan. Dr. Tedros.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, my friend Hiro. Can you maybe elaborate, because the governance reform is really wide, so is there any specific area you're interested, so I can just focus on that, because it's very broad?
Because as you said, that governance reform is wide, and you are mentioning many, many reforms. So what will be your priorities among many reforms? That is my core of question. Am I clear to use, Dr. Tedros?
I would still expect actually something specific of your interest, but I can move on if you prefer it that way. But if you have a specific, I would appreciate that.
Yes, Japan, can you provide more clarity?
So I think I would like to see how you are going to strengthen WHO's financing reforms and relating governance reform, including accountability and transparency and financial discipline. I thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's very clear. So on the financing, it will be a continuation of my first term, by the way. As you may remember, when I started as a DG, especially in terms of resource mobilization and financing, the efforts from the organization was very weak. I remember that the team which was in charge of private sector, resource mobilization, NGO, everything was just a small group. I don't think there were more than 5 or 6 people actually. And then we reconfigured that and to become an external relations with a strong resource mobilization department and with a clear mandate. And after we have finalized the GPW, we put together an investment case, which was the first of its kind. And then we had a partners forum to discuss on the financial governance and resource mobilization issues. And then we established the WHO Foundation. We expanded the donors base. And the resources we're getting now are much better than before. Of course, we have more earmarked funding, which is not really flexible. But in terms of resources, as soon as I started in 2017, especially the voluntary core contribution increased from around 14 million to close to 260 million. There was a significant increase and continuous increment from 2017 to 2018 to 2019 to 2020, 21, 22. As you remember, I took over in 2017. And there was improvement from 2018 and then next. So we need to move in that direction. But I'm sorry to say this, from the Secretariat side, we have done our best to explore different ways of mobilizing resources, expanded our donor base, increased our financing, significantly different from where I got it in 2017. But the quest for assessed contribution has not moved an inch. That's why we have the request now, an increase in assessed contribution from member states, which we are asking you to do it actually. So the bargain, the deal on our side is done, whatever we can as Secretariat, but the part from WHO, the governance side from our member states is not moving. So please, I ask you, Japan and others, to do that. Then on accountability, on transparency, you have my word. We believe in accountability. That's why the GPW 14 for the first, GPW 13 for the first time is actually measurable. And then on transparency, you know what we did with PRSEH? For the first time, a UN organization has hired an external investigator. First, we established an independent commission, and the Independent Commission hired an external investigator to check on what happened with SEAH. So this organization will continue to be open for any scrutiny. For me, that's accountability, that's transparency, because those who are going to scrutinize will check what happened, they will check what we have achieved based on what we planned, and also we will avail to them transparently, so the transparency comes there. So we're offering to you the highest level of transparency, even using external bodies that the UN have never done before. But as a UN organization, WHO wants to do that, did that already, and we will continue in the same one. If that's the governance changes you're asking for, we have already done it, and we will continue to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tedros. The time allowed for the question and answer session is now exhausted, and so is the total time allocated for the interview. I wish to thank you, Dr. Tedros, for being with us at this meeting, and I would ask the Secretariat to accompany you back to your office. Thank you. And this concludes the interview. We shall now adjourn for a short break before we reconvene to continue with our consideration of Agenda Item 6.1 in private meeting to proceed with the nomination by secret ballot vote. Thank you.